Good evening, everyone. Today's session is on generations of computer that we have in our computer application. So basically, when we have this course like fundamentals, we should understand what are the basic things of computer, right? How we have evolution, like how the history of computer evolved. Earlier, we were using which type of hardware. Currently, we are using which type of hardware. How our computers are increasing in their like how it becomes faster, which technology is used behind it, right? So let us begin with the session and understand the generations of computer, right? The first part is there are five generations of computer that we will be studying in this session. We will be learning about how these five generations have their own advantages, right? Earlier we don't have AI or other techniques like VLSI integrated at the start of the when we have developed the computer systems. We don't have such kind of things. Later on, we have nowadays we are using number of technologies for saving the data also, for increasing the speed, how the data is stored on the cloud. Earlier we don't have such kind of thing. So let us see the first part, first generation of computer. Before moving into this the generations, we should understand the basic terminologies that we used in a computer system, right? So why there is a need, you may say, what is the importance of that? The computer has evolved from a large size simple calculating. You may have a room type of like a machine that is too big, and how we are today we are using the computers, and even much more powerful than that machine, right? So obviously based on the size, the first part. Evolution of computer to the current state is defined in terms of generations of computer, what we are actually using at this point of time, right? Each generation of computer is designed based on a new technological development. I told you how technology evolved, how technology earlier we don't have, like if I'm talking about the internet. Earlier, first wave in the first wave we have internet. Now in the second wave we have mobile internet. Then we have internet of things. Then nowadays we are using AI. This is technological development. The same is with the computer also, resulting in better. Earlier they were very, you may say these machines were costly. Now they are expensive, but they are reasonable also, and faster also. So there are some, you may say, some characteristics that are related to generations. Then we have, currently there are five generations of computer. I told you there are five generations of computer. We will be starting one by one each of the generation. We will discuss the generation in terms of technology used by them, hardware and software, computing characteristics, what is the speed, what are the number of instructions executed per second, physical appearance, big computers, big machines, how we have laptops. So this is how technology works, and how we have a storage kind of thing on a big system. And nowadays we are holding a system that is a chip, and that is holding a large space, a huge space where you can store your data. Earlier we have big machine for doing that thing, for calculation purpose also, for calculating the different formulas, for calculating, for solving the problems, right? So these are converted into generations only, right? So we will be discussing these number of features, right? What are the characteristics, what is the hardware related to that particular generation. Let us start with the first generation, that is between 1940 to 1956. The first computer used vacuum tubes. Earlier we don't have integrated circuits. After this it was introduced, but earlier we don't have integrated circuits or VLSI chips or silicon chips, right? We used to have vacuum tubes, right? Like this I have shown you, right? Allows free passage of electric current for circuitry and magnetic drums for memory. I told you the whole story depends on how to store your data, how to perform calculations on your data, how to manipulate your data, right? They were often enormous and taking up entire room. I told you they are big machines for basically storing the data. First generation relied on machine language. So there are languages also. There are things that are beyond that. Which language they are using? They are using machine zero or one language. I will be telling you how these like what is machine level, what is high level programming languages, how it is converted into compiler assembly languages. So they are number of languages. I will be giving you a brief idea to that also. They were very expensive. This is the another characteristics of first generation. You have big, large space, huge space to have that particular machine. Rely on machine language, again very expensive. And in addition to that, great deal of electricity, and generated a lot of heat, which was often the cause of malfunctions, or you may say breakdown. The UNIVAC and NEAC computers are the examples of first generation computing devices. Right? Let me give you some highlights to this part. Vacuum tubes, magnetic drums, how much bits per second? That is 4000 bits per second. What are the different machines that we have in the first generation? IBM 650 and UNIVAC first. How they are programs, hardware programs in computer. So these are some highlights of the first generation computers. Right, let us move to the next generation, ENIAC. Yes, before moving to the second generation, I have written down some of the advantages after each generation so that you are able to understand why we are using such kind of thing, right? Now you can see in the picture such a huge machine, such a big machine, and this machine is basically uh, occupying the whole room, right? In the second picture also you may see a large room, a big room is there for having such kind of machine, right? So let us see, these are some disadvantages also, but it has some advantages. At that time we don't have any problem solver machines, so these are the machines which are simply helping the people also, right? The first device to hold memory, right? Everything is not saved in the memory, in our human memory. So you have a device to save something, some data into the memory. It was only electronic device, nothing else. Disadvantage I have already used. I have already discussed actually. Vacuum tubes burn frequently. So breakdown in the machine. They were producing a heat, right? Maintenance problems. How to maintain that particular machine. Too bulky, large in size. So these are some advantages why there is why we moved from first generation to second generation. Let us see. In the second generation, that is between 1956 to 1963, now we replace vacuum tubes with transistors and ushered in the second generation of computers. Second generation of computers moved from citing binary machine language to symbolic. So earlier we were using machine language. Okay. Now we are moving towards symbolic language. There are some symbols and they are solving the problem. Other programming languages were also being developed at this time. So I told you about high level programming languages such as COBOL, Fortran. We were using for calculations, right? They were also the first computers that store the instructions in their memory. So now you are able to store the instructions in the memory. Earlier also we used to have, but there was a limitation in the memory space also. Like, what is the limit to store the data? Now, what are the highlights to this second generations we have in transistors? Vacuum tubes were replaced by transistors. Magnetic codes. In a hardware, we may say magnetic codes are used. Instructions per instructions used were 32 bits. Punch cards for storing the data, or for inserting, or you may say for holding the data. What are the different machines that are available? CDC, GE, and IBM. What are the advantages and disadvantages of second generation computers? So we can see from the particular picture, we may have a machine. They are very fast also. They are much reliable than the previous one, because they are sometimes like vacuum tubes get burns easily. So here we are using transistors, right? Very like powerful example is reduced in size. Such a huge system. Now we have a small, better than that. Overheated problem continues. Maintenance problems also continues with this. Then we have is third generation computer. Now the we come to vacuum tubes to transistors. Now we come to integrated circuits, right? ICs, what we call as ICs. The development of integrated circuits was the hallmark of the third generation. So here we are using what? The integrated circuits. Transistors were miniaturized and placed on silicon chips called semiconductors. So basically, miniaturized, you may say, how transistors were placed on silicon chips, and that is called semiconductors. Again, we are moving towards more better have kind of hardware. Instead of punch cards and printouts, interacted with the third generation computers through keyboard. Rather than inserting the data with punch cards or making some taking some printouts, we are using now keywords for giving the inputs to the system. So user interaction is replaced by punch cards for storing, for inserting the data, for holding the data. Rather than doing that, we are using keyboards and monitors and interface with an operating system. So a very, you may say, a generation in which you have an interaction kind of thing. The user interface comes into a picture, right? So it's a very, very like huge achievement at that time. Allowed the devices to run many different applications at one time. So you may have multi-programming kind of thing, right? A device can, like, I am presenting, I am doing my Gmail, I am opening my Gmail account at the same time, I am checking my WhatsApp account at the same time on the same machine. So I am opening different applications on the single machine at a time. Now let us see the highlights of third generation. Silicon chips or integrated circuits were used. Core ICs in the hardware part. Now the bits has much increased to 128, yeah, 128,000 bits were used. Keyboard entry. Now you have an interface, no need to have punch cards or printouts. You may directly use keyboards for interacting with the users. Users can interact with the system with the help of keyboards. What are the different systems we have in this particular generation? That we have IBM, NCR, and Honeywell. I will be sharing more systems also and more pictures also, because there are different things, like some people get confused in this year that was there. So you maybe it is approximated year, right? Like suppose I am talking about the previous, the third generation 1965. So in some books it is written something else, so don't get confused. It is approximated like 90, between 1960 to 1970s, it is like that, right? Let us see the advantages. The, yeah, you may see the picture also. Such a big system earlier we used to have, and now we come to a So small area also, right? ICs were very small in size, no need for transistors, no need for vacuum tubes. Improved performance, efficiency was there, production cost was cheap. Now we are moving towards from expensive systems, expensive hardwares to cheap hardwares. Disadvantages, they are very sophisticated material, needs to be handled like we say it like handled to be uh, handled properly, or care to handle these devices, because these systems are very sophisticated systems, right? Now let us see the fourth generation. So fourth generation computers were basically between 1970s to presently. Like we have now, we are using microprocessors, right? Brought the fourth generation of computers as the thousands of integrated circuits were built onto a sync silicon chip. No need to have such a huge hardware, or you may say vacuum tubes or transistors, not efficient also. Now when we come to this particular part, we have an Intel chip, Intel core processors also, that is developed in 1970. Now we have refined that part. We are using i5, or nowadays we are using i6 also. So the processors are being replaced also, located all the components of the computer, right? From central CPU and the memory to input and output controls on a single chip. Fourth generation computers also saw the development of GUIs, the mouse, and the handheld devices. Not only keyboards, now you may have be using wireline mouse, or you may say the mouses, or you may say the other handheld devices. Next thing we have in this is, what are the highlights of this course? Silicon chips, what are LSIs? Large scale integrated circuits. ICs, we know that integrated circuits, we may be using LC LSIs, right? We may like later on we will be using VLSIs also, right? Like today in the fifth generation, we all may be using such kind of very very small integrated circuits. So silicon chips that are large scale. So this is what the difference between this is LSI, that is large scale integrated circuits. 100 million bits read programs of disks. Now you can have disk, you may have the storage. In the storage part also it has been changed. You may have different system, HP, Apple, Xerox, Texas Instrument. There are a number of systems which are used. Dell, Lenovo, there are a number of systems we have. Now let us see some of the fourth generation. Like these are the systems we have. Next we have is fifth generation computers, present and beyond. I, like based on the artificial intelligence. Fifth generation computing devices. You may be some using some devices giving you predictions. Nowadays, number of sensor devices are used. Like if I open my mic, Google Meet just suggest me your mic is not open, off, it is off. If you are speaking something, it is, so the sensor part is also maintained behind each and every devices, right? Are still in development though. There are some applications such as voice recognition, pattern recognition, handwrite recognition. Number of devices are developed. The use of parallel processing and superconductors is helping to make the AI as a reality. Yes, this is true, because earlier we have uh, processing, we have multi-programming, we have multi microprocessor, we have number of things, but nowadays we have those kind. At the same time you can process number of things, number of tasks, right? And to hold that data also. The goal of fifth generation computing is to develop devices that respond to natural language input and are capable of learning and self organization. So basically, like we have we are using microphones, and or we are talking to a machine like Alexa or Google Nest or any other device. It can the basically the device can take input as my natural language. It could be English, it could be Hindi, it could be any language. The data set, the language it can understand also. No need to have like earlier we don't have such kind of machine, and it is capable to learn from my past experience. So machine has become so intelligent, it keeps on learning also. Besides, it is based on some rules. Yes, there are some rule based models, there are some learning based also, right? So in the fifth generation we may have number of characteristics, number of things. It can manage itself, it can update. Like nowadays we are using the different operating systems that is providing number of advantages. Now all these generations, have you seen the growth in the technology in the, you may say, the software and in the hardware. Vacuum tubes to transistors, transistors to ICs, ICs to LSIs, LSIs to VLSIs. Now how it has changed. So it is based on some hardware also, and it is based on some softwares also. So let us see some of the characteristics that we have in our fifth generation. The first is silicon chips, very large integrated circuits, VLSIs, right? Earlier we used to have LSIs, right? Now we have unlimited. There is nothing like that, only this much bits are going to have in your computer on your system. You have unlimited part. No need to have a keyboard or mouse. There are number of things through which you can give the input and receive the output. This is not only like, yeah, I am using different input devices and taking the conducting the classes. Number of softwares are there, and it is like now like in this, during this period we are used to have number of technologies, number of online tools that basically makes a interest, that creates, that generates an interest into the student, so that the student is compelled to study. Even the students are not coming, like sometimes we face, like again we are having some like online classes so online classes becomes a part of our life. So how is it possible? This is technology only. So we should thank to our researchers also, like how we are coming from like going to a same thing, going to the school, taking or conducting classes physically. Nowadays the advantage is you have the tool, the same material, the same thing can be studied, the same thing, the same classes can be conducted online through technology only. So besides understanding the generation, we should understand the technological concept also, the different tools that we are going to use, right? So there are number of examples I have discussed. Like suppose I am taking a quiz. Rather than taking a quiz, a student is speaking something or raising hand, it's a kind of an interaction in the class, raising a hand. I can make a quiz through some tool also, right? Besides using any like showing the screen on using some blackboard or whiteboard, I can have a whiteboard, I can have a jamboard. For submission of assignments also, we may have a Padlet. You can submit your assignment on the Padlet. So what is this? This is the growth in technology also. So when we have a growth in technology, obviously it is affecting everything, the hardware and the software part, right? So I hope you have understood the session, and I will be just giving a recap, a quick recap to that, so that because most of the people feel so like why we are studying this. So this is basically we are studying to have a look, have to know about how our hardware have like how our system had built on such a big hardware, and now we have reached to a simple small chips that is holding a huge storage, and we can update our information on that particular storage. You may be using Google apps, you may be using your drives, Google drives, you may be using the number of things, right? So let's have a quick recap on this generations of computer, and then in the next coming series we will have more topics. The first generation highlights vacuum tubes, so delicate and easily burn up. So this is the disadvantage, very large system occupying the whole room, right? Second, in the second generation we have transistors. Again, in transistors we have that kind of thing, but we don't have keyboards or such kind of thing for holding the, for having the user interaction. Again, they are very fast, they are very reliable, but they get overheated, and the maintenance problem would continue in that case also, in that generation also. Then we have ICs and introduction of keyboards. The main part is keyboards. Rather than inserting or holding the data on punch cards, you have keyboards for entering your data. And again we have convert like vacuum tubes, transistors, and then we have ICs. Then we have LSIs also. In the fourth generation we have large scales integrated circuits, and then later on we move to VLSIs, that is very large integrated circuits, right? I hope you have understood like how we have undergone through the like hardware development, and how we have used different technologies, how our how we are using the advanced techniques, advanced tools also, for having you may say for having, yeah, qualitative education also. Because all of things, when we are building anything, when we are building any softwares, it would be helping in our any of the sector. You may be saying it is going to solve some social issues, it is going to solve some economic issues, or it is going to solve some environmental issues, right? So it is addressing number of issues, right? So you may, I hope you have understood the session and you like the session. So we will be coming with more sessions. Nowadays, we are using such kind of systems, so small, so compatible also. And you may say the GUI, the graphical user interface, you have wireless mouse, you have wireless keyboards also, you may have even online UPS also. Nowadays, we are using online UPS also, right? No need to have a big machine in your like in your anywhere in your organization. Use online UPS for saving the electricity, right? I hope you like the session. Thank you.